What is up, my friends? So today we're out in the country, out in the middle of nowhere, because we are going to learn how to do wheelies. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know how to wheelie on just about any different type of motorcycle. This should be really fun. So whether you got the cruiser, whether you got the scooter, the sport bike, the naked, the supermoto, the dirt bike, I think this should be very informative, and by the end of this you should know how to pop that front tire off the ground. So, step one, start up your motorcycle, which we just did. Make sure everything's in running order, that you have good tires, good chain and sprockets if your bike is chain drive. I don't think traffic will be too bad today, so it is windy today. So when you are doing wheelies and it's a windy day like today, you're going to want to do your wheelies perfectly at the wind or with the wind. You do not want to be doing wheelies against the wind. So if you have a crosswind and you lay up a wheelie, it's going to cause you to drift. Or if you try and shift your weight and counterbalance it, then you're going to get kind of a lean on, and that lean just gradually keeps going. So we are going to wheelie against and with the wind today. So I had to find a road that ran north and south. All right. So the bike that we are on today is going to be a Honda 919. So it's a 900cc naked style bike. Has about 110 horsepower. That's plenty, but you can really do wheelies on just about any engine size cc of motorcycle. So even your small Z125s, your Groms, your 250 Ninjas, 400s, the R3s, the CBR 300s, 500s, the lower cc bikes are just going to have a tougher time getting that wheelie up. They don't have as much power. So you're really just going to have to wrap up that throttle a little bit when we pop the clutch. And if you don't know what popping the clutch means, don't worry, I'm about to show you in due time, kids. So first off, we're just going to kind of warm up our tires here. Man, it is a windy day. Fairly warm out. It's about 77 degrees right now. We shouldn't need to warm up our tires too much, but you can just go on about, we'll say a 5-minute drive. Just really get those tires warmed up. Otherwise, when you try and wheelie, your back tire might just spin out, and we don't want that. We just want it to hook up firmly and pull that front end right off the ground. So this looks good. We're just going to make a U-turn here so that we're wheeling with the wind. So first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to constantly be looking behind me here because I don't have mirrors on my bike. So every bike's going to have a different red line, right? So ours is at 9,500. So what I'm going to do is just bring my RPMs to around the 35 to 4,000 mark. So you kind of just want to be close to your mid RPMs. I like to stay a little bit under that, just so that I have plenty of RPMs left to spare. So as we are holding our RPMs there, what we're going to do is pull in our clutch on the left-hand side. So as we pull in that clutch, we're going to give it more RPMs, maybe 5 or 6 or so, and then you will let out that clutch. And then that sudden jolt of power that we're sending to the rear wheel is going to pull our front wheel up. So, and you'll kind of have to experiment with this a little bit, depending on what kind of bike you're on, how much power it has, the weight of it. You'll have to experiment with that a little bit, and always, guys, please always start off modestly, okay? Start off small and work your way up on those revs. You know, what you can also do as well is give your bike a tug on the handlebars as you pop that clutch. Now, a tip for as you're popping the clutch. You can do it with your whole hand, pulling that clutch lever in, or you could do it with just 2 fingers. That gives you, your thumb and 3 other fingers still on the handlebar. So when that that clutch gets let out and we send that jolt of power to the rear wheel there, that bike's not going to get away from you. Your hand's not going to slip off the handlebar because you still have a few fingers there. If your fingers are strong enough, or if your clutch is soft enough, you will be able to do it with just one finger. I'm just going to pull over here as we're still talking a little bit. So you'll be able to pull that clutch in with just one finger, and it should be pulled in just enough. If you pull it back so where it hits the rest of your knuckles on your finger, that should be in enough that if you rev the bike, it won't go anywhere. So one finger is going to be just fine. I feel the most comfortable just doing a one finger clutch pull. My fingers are kind of calloused up and they're fairly strong. I typically am always turning wrenches and working with my hands, so we're just going to do a one finger clutch pull, but you could do two fingers, you could do your whole hand. You know, you could start with your full hand, and then as your fingers start to get stronger from all the wheelies that you're constantly doing, then you could move down to two fingers, then maybe just one finger. So regardless of how you pull the clutch, we're going to pull that clutch in as we already had our RPMs at about 3,500 to 4 grand. We'll pull that clutch in, rev it up just a little bit beyond that, and then we let out our clutch. And you want to kind of follow through on the gas there. So you'll send that jolt of power to the rear wheel, but if you let go of the throttle right as you let out your clutch, that front end's not really going to come off the ground. It's just going to kind of lurch you a little bit. So we want to kind of follow through on the throttle. Not that you have to completely pin it to win it, but you want to kind of stay on that throttle a little bit. So we'll kind of do our first couple wheelies here just to show you kind of what this looks like. Let me get around this curve quick, and we'll show you guys. So I'm just going to be in first gear, right? And I would recommend that you do the same for your first few wheelies here. First gear is just going to have the most torque and the most power, and it's also moving at the slowest rate of speed of all the gears in your gearbox, so that's kind of your safest bet to learn these wheelies. Alright, all the cars have gone past us here. Alright, so we are rolling here. We're going to get our RPMs up to about that 3,500. We're going to pull in our clutch here as we rev it, and then we'll just let out that clutch. Now it can come up pretty fast. Now I popped it up fairly high there, right? I've got a couple different motorcycles, and I was riding my other one this morning. So thank goodness we didn't go over, but you'll want to start small on that, right? So we'll try that again. So I'm going to be at about 3,500 RPMs, 4,000, somewhere below the half point, whatever bike you're driving. We're going to pull that clutch in, we'll rev it up a little higher, and then drop it. See, so that was a little bit smaller one. We didn't quite get the front end as high as we wanted. So we'll add a few more RPMs this time to it. Bring it back up to 3,500 here. We pull in our clutch, add some more RPMs, and then drop it. Oh, another small one. So we're going to try and do that again and make it a swift motion here. There we go. Now you'll notice that if I don't have my front end high enough to be a balance point, right, where I can just maintain the same speed, you will have to keep adding throttle to your bike in order to maintain that wheelie. If your front end isn't to the balance point, you need to be accelerating in order to keep that front end off the ground. Now, once you do get to balance point, once you work your skills up, once you're ballsy enough to have the front end that far off the ground, and you can feel that you're letting off the throttle, that you're not accelerating at all, but your front end is staying up in the air, You're going to notice that your bike suddenly, when you're accelerating in a wheelie, it really just stays straight. But once you're at balance point, once you get far enough back, your bike will turn on you. So if you lean to the left, your motorcycle will kind of turn left as it's in the wheelie. Or if you lean to the right, put some weight on your right foot peg, or lean to the right of your seat, whatever it may be, you'll notice that then your motorcycle will drift to the right. And don't feel like you have to get there overnight, kids. Learning wheelies and learning that aspect of your motorcycle, how to make it do that, is a tricky thing, you know? It requires some skill. There's a lot of people out there that can make that look extremely easy, you know? They're just going along, they pop the clutch, and then the front end's right up. And you will get there. Trust me, we'll get there. But it doesn't have to be overnight. You just want to start small and work your way up. Just try and get that front end, you know, an inch, 2 inches off the ground, 6 inches off the ground, a foot off the ground. Just progressively work up. Because at the point to where you pull it up too much and you loop your motorcycle backwards, you do not have a motorcycle anymore to practice wheelies on, or at least it's in very bad shape, right? So we don't want to do that. Now we're in second gear, so say you've been practicing your first gear wheelies a long time, you've gotten very proficient at it. You decide to try and do things in second gear so you can have a little bit more speed. The faster you are when doing a wheelie, the more stable it's going to be. Up and down, side to side, just everything about it. But the risk and danger factor is significantly upped when your speed is up on the wheelie. So we're in second gear here, so we have less power and torque in second gear than we do in first gear. So in order to get a wheelie up in second gear, I am going to have to rev it a lot more than I would have in first gear, okay? Oh, we've got plenty of cars here, so we'll just zip around that corner again. Kind of I'm riding against that crosswind right here, so I want to get back to where I'm riding with the wind. Right. So, and this is going to be our clutch up wheelies, okay? I'm going to show you how to do wheelies without a clutch right after this. But technically, the best way to do your wheelies, the wheelies that look the best, that sound the best, that really catch the eye, are going to be the ones that you clutch up. You know, if you have a powerful enough bike, of course you can just, you know, be going along, let off the gas and mash the gas, and then that front end might come up. But if you have a bike that's not powerful enough to do that, you will need to do the clutch up method. So that is why we decided to go over that first, since that will kind of be applicable to all styles of motorcycle. Alright, we'll slow over here. Let this guy who is behind us here slip past. Boy, usually nobody's on this road, and this is kind of a busy stretch today. See if we got one more coming around the bend. She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming around the mountain. Alright, we're good to go. Back to wheelie school. Alright, so first we'll do our first gear one again. 3,500 RPMs. We're pulling in the clutch. We're adding RPMs. So I'm not really looking down when I'm doing that. I'm kind of just going off the sound of this bike. But I feel like it was probably at about 5,500 RPMs. Now, that's not a perfect equation that you can take to every motorcycle. You know, the smaller your motorcycle, the smaller the engine size, less powerful it is, the more RPMs you're going to have to add to get that same effect. The more powerful your bike is, obviously, the less RPMs you will add. And of course, you are starting small when you are doing all that to really feel when your motorcycle is grabbing. So now we'll go to second gear here. Second gear, having that less power, less torque, we're really just going to have to give it more RPMs than we did in first gear. So I added a couple thousand more RPMs to get that same result in second gear than I did in first gear. But second gear being a little bit taller, you know, since it goes faster than first gear, when you're adding your throttle to keep that wheelie up, if you're not all the way back at balance point, you can ride that just a little bit further, you'll find. So it takes more to initially get it up, but then your wheelie is going to be more stable and you can ride it out longer. Now, the second kind of wheelies that we're going to go over, which you can choose to do or not to do here, is going to be hammer on, power up, roll on wheelies, whatever you would like to call them, okay? So the way that we're going to do that, you kind of want to be more up in your power band. So we're going to have to be at a higher RPM than, say, 3,500. Since this is an inline 4-cylinder motorcycle, you know, our power is definitely going to be in the RPMs. So we are going to want to be maybe at 4,500 RPMs or so, maybe 4,500 to 5. And the way that we're going to do this is we'll be in first gear and we'll have our RPMs at that 4,500 to 5. Obviously, that will vary on your motorcycle, but try and be about at the halfway up your RPM range, or maybe just a touch higher. And then we're going to let off the throttle, and then as we add throttle, we're going to kind of pull on the handlebars a little bit. We're going to kind of anticipate that wheelie. We're going to help the bike wheelie a little bit, if you will. All right. Yes, I understand I'm in third gear right now, but I'm just trying to get around the corner. I don't think this bike has near enough balls to do a power-up wheelie in third gear. But we'll try first gear here, and we'll see if the 919 can do it. So we're at 4,500, 5,000 RPMs. We'll just let off and hammer on really quick. Now it would do it. And you know, you probably saw me give the handlebars a little bit of a yank as well. Obviously we did not touch that clutch even the slightest bit, so we'll do that once more to where we kind of take it up to 45, maybe 5,000 RPMs, and we just let off and then hammer on as we pull up quick. So this is going to be a fairly easy way to get your front end up. Now, the reason that this wheelie method I don't like so much, or that it can work against you, is because you're already fairly high up in your RPM range to do these hammer-on wheelies. So while it does get the front end up, if you wanted to just do a small wheelie, sure, that will work. But you're already getting higher up in your RPM range, so you can't really ride out that wheelie too far, right? And of course you have to have a bike that has the power to do those hammer-on, those roll-on wheelies, those power wheelies. Now, there is another method of doing power wheelies to where you can get the front end up at a lower RPM. Oh, I'm gonna whip it around. Well, we'll go up to this driveway here. I need to be in a parking lot, but this bike is just geared a little bit tall. You know, first gear goes about 62 miles per hour on this Honda 919, and so Parking lot's just kind of a small place to do wheelies on. Alright, so our third method here of doing wheelies. It's going to be a hammer-on method, a power wheelie method, but we're going to add another layer to it. We're going to do something so that we can get our RPMs down for when we initially do that power wheelie. And the way that we're going to do that is we are going to kick our rear left foot peg down. The reason I do the rear left, not the rear right, is so that your right foot can still stay over that rear brake for your bike. Okay? Now, if you ever hit the rear brake as you're in a wheelie, it's going to bring your front end down very fast. Now, I don't typically preach that to anybody. I do not use the rear brake at all for any of my wheelies, even at balance point. Letting off the throttle adds enough engine braking that will pull you back from any wheelie unless you are at 12 o'clock and there is no other way to possibly save your ass and get that front end back down. Then that's a scenario in which you would press the rear brake. But if you are slowly working your way up, right, we're not trying to do the biggest wheelies right off the bat. We are just working our way up, getting that front end more and more high or higher and higher off the ground. You know, if you do it like that, you will not find yourself in that boat where you are 12 o'clock and you are trying to press the rear brake to save your ass. So, what we are going to do is, as we are riding along, we're going to put our left foot on that rear left peg, and we're going to slightly stand on the motorcycle. I know it sounds absolutely nuts, guys, right? I'm telling you to stand on your bike as you wheelie. Something that not a lot of people know is that stand-up wheelies are by far the easiest way to wheelie. You have the best control over your bike. It makes balance point going to be at a lower spot. Your front end does not have to be as high off the ground to find that balance point as if you were sitting. So we're just going to be at 3,000 RPMs here roughly, and we'll just let off the throttle as we are kind of standing on it here, and then it will pull the front end up. So we did that at a much lower RPM here. Now, first gear is your torquiest gear, right? So I would not start those stand-up power-on wheelies by trying to hold them for any extended amount of time. I would kind of just hop the rear end, or hop the front end rather, up and down. Just kind of experiment with popping that front end off just a little bit. So we're going to do that a couple more times here. We'll just be at 3,000 RPMs, nice and low in our RPM range, and then we're just going to let off the gas and then hammer on it quick. Now we'll do a little bit of kind of what I was telling you, just to keep it at 3,000 RPMs. You'll let off the gas and add some gas, just barely pop it off the ground for a little bit. You know, just little things like that. Definitely start small when you are doing those stand-up wheelies. It is going to shock you, to say the least, at how easily that front end comes up as soon as you put your left foot on that rear left passenger peg. It's like cheating for wheelies. Normally we had to rev the shit out of our bike here when we were popping the clutch in second gear to get it to wheelie. Now we are in second gear, and we're just going to do that same thing to where we put our left foot on the back left passenger peg, and we're just going to let off the throttle and then hammer it on, no clutch at all, in second gear. Came right off. just want to start that small. You know, you'll find yourself using a little bit higher RPMs than you would in first gear, but we're still not touching the clutch when we do that. Just because we have enough weight on the rear of the motorcycle that suddenly it is power wheeling in second gear with no clutch. Oh, we'll let this pickup truck go by here, and then we'll do that again in second gear. We'll raise it a little bit higher off the ground here yet. So we'll have it at the 445 or so. We're going to put our left foot back on that peg there. We kind of stand up on the bike a little, and then we just bounce that throttle. And there it is, kids. That's our second gear stand-up. And it is glorious. And it's fast. That's the thing about doing wheelies in those higher gears, is that you're kind of speeding up the game. You're up in the ante, I guess you could say. So we'll kind of go over all of our wheelie methods again. First off, our clutch up there. First gear, about 3,500 RPMs. Pull in the clutch, up your RPMs, let out your clutch very swiftly. And that is the clutch up wheelie. Now our second kind will be those hammer-on power wheelies. So again, we'll just be in first gear. Since we are not using the clutch, we need to have our RPMs just a little bit higher here. So we'll get to that 4,500 or so. We just let off and swiftly hammer on the gas. And that was our power on wheelie. And then we'll just do our power on stand-up wheelie. Nobody's behind us. All right, first gear. Since we're shifting all of our weight to the back, we don't need to be at a higher RPM. We'll just be at 3,000 RPM. Left foot on the back passenger peg. We're standing on our bike here and just let off the gas and hammer on. And there it is. Very easy to bring the front end up like that. Extremely easy. And then our refresher, when you're in second gear doing your clutch ups, you need to add more gas than you would have in first gear, okay? So we're really just going to wrap it up as we pop that clutch. And that's our second gear pop. And then for your second gear power wheelie standing up, obviously we don't have the power on this bike to do the second gear power wheelie sitting down. So when you are doing those second gear power on stand-up wheelies, you'll have your RPMs just a little bit higher than we would have had them otherwise. We'll let this white car go past, and then we'll do that. Alright, so we'll bring it up to about 45 or so. We're standing, left foot back. Oh, should we let this truck go past? Sure. I don't want to intimidate the general public. And there's that second gear stand-up. Nice and smooth. So stable. Side to side and front and back. Like we said. So well, hopefully that kind of helps you out, guys, as far as kind of a good tutorial on how to do wheelies. So depending on what kind of bike you have, obviously the sport bikes, they have the most power and they're the lightest weight. It's definitely the easiest to do wheelies on a sport bike. I would say it's probably just as easy to do wheelies on dirt bikes as well. They have a lot of torque, they're extremely lightweight, and they hold their weight up so high. You know, think of dirt bikes. They have so much suspension, the seat heights, the engine, everything sits up so high on them that you can do a lot of different styles of wheelies on dirt bikes, dual sports, supermotos, kind of all of those. Now, if you have a cruiser, your cruiser may or may not be able to do wheelies. You might have to experiment with one or all of those methods to do wheelies. You might even need to do a method that we did not do in this video, where you're doing a clutch up, stand up wheelie. So, and that's when you are popping that clutch in first or second gear. If you have a really heavy cruiser, it will only be able to do it in first gear. But that's where you would have a foot on the back passenger peg. You would be in first gear, and you will be popping that clutch as you're doing your stand-up wheelie. So that's kind of the one method that will almost get any bike to wheelie. If it doesn't wheelie as you're doing a stand-up, clutch-up method, it probably will not wheelie, because that's kind of the end-all be-all way to do wheelies. And if you guys have any other questions, if there's something I forgot to mention, definitely reach out. Let me know in the comments, and I will get back to you, and we can make another video if need be, if we need to get into more detail or explain things a little bit better, but I feel like that should be a fairly good start to all of this. So whatever you're riding, whether it's the small bike, the big bike, the powerful bike, the underdog, the cruiser, the scooter, the dirt bike, if it's got two wheels and an engine, we're glad that you're out there. So until next time, guys, have a wonderful afternoon. Practice your wheelies. Let me know if you got questions. And live fast and free, my friends.